everyone. Hope everybody can hear me. Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here. Next 30 minutes, we will be running through the framework which you can use for building PSIRT capabilities in your organization. So it's a framework. Okay, just let's start with some lighter note. Okay. I feel really bad for this puppy because it complains that all its stuffs are not connected because today we are. I think all of you would agree that we are going through a massive digital disruption. So we have already gone through. We are still going through the massive digital disruption. So it changes the way. If you look at the episode 1 of internet, it was all about connecting people to people and people with people. But now things are changing. It is more about connecting machines to machine and machines to people, right? Today, you see, we are using smart home. We are living in smart homes. We are using smartphones, smartwatches, everything. So it's all a machine to machine connection and machine to human connection, right? So the things have completely changed. And soon, I feel this puppy also will get all its stuff connected to internet. And why this is happening, right? So it is because of there is a 3x proliferation of IoT devices. So what makes this machine-to-machine communications? What makes this machine-to-human communications? It is all through the IoT devices. The various IoT devices are expanding, and it is 3x between 2018 to 2025. And it's just not devices. We have the ability to do the big data these days, right? So we have all the data centers connected, and we have a way to aggregate the data that are stored in the data centers. And we are going around, generated from 33 zettabytes today to 175 zettabyte by 2025. So we are having a massive data, and this massive data lead to the widespread of artificial intelligence, right? So it just, we have devices, we have data, and both these things come together, and it is giving an artificial intelligence. It can give you decision, it can help in decision-making process. It can alert you for preventive maintenance. It can do various other stuff. It can automate, do various other stuff. So digital is really disrupting. In Schneider, we are a digital company. We provide digital solutions for efficiency and sustainability of our customers. Okay. Just before we go too much into Schneider, let me give you how the industry has evolved over years. So it is the industrial evolution. So it has 5 different versions. Starting with the version 1, it started around 1780. This is the time the manufacturing was moving from handcraft to the machine-based manufacturing. So predominantly, this is the time we got the cloth weaving machines. We got the cotton gin machines. We got, it was more focused on water and steam engines. And then in late 1990s, technology has advanced. So electricity was introduced, right, into the manufacturing process. And electricity, we built assembly lines. We did mass production because we had electricity that can, support such mass production. In 1970s, this is when the computers came in, right? So it kind of created partial automation. We brought electronics. So we had, the computers helping in the partial automation, and the production magnitude has really increased. And then comes the 2000 year, the word real digitization happens, right? So before 2000, none of us were thinking that we had a digital organization or digital department within our companies, right? Today, almost all the organization has digital digital department within our companies. So this is the timeline where we had smart factories, right? So the factories have become smarter, not just our watches and phones, but factories have become smarter. And this is where the IoT devices came into the play, and the artificial intelligence and the big data, where the machine-to-machine communications happen. And today, most recently, we are into a personalization. So which is the 5th industrial revolution, 5th version of the industrial revolution. Here we are talking about, the cognitive systems, right? So the machine, the devices can understand you. It can help you make decisions. We are going to have a human robot interactions. It can help you to decision making. It can help you predict things. It can help you shape things, right? So this is how the industry revolution has evolved over years. And in Schneider, in order for us to support our customers going through this industrial revolution, come to the real 5.0, we have our EcoStruxure platform, right? So we are very proud of this platform because it helps you to connect every devices. We have our connected products, we have our edge control systems and app and analytics, which really bringing this cognitive feature for our customers in various industries like building, data center, infrastructure, or industry, right? So now, if we want to build such a system, and we are dealing with heterogeneous product, right? So right from the PLCs or power meters or HMIs, smart UPSs, and various other things. And we also have an edge control devices like SCADA and engineering software, which needs to, programmed. All these edge devices needs to be programmed and interacted. And finally, it needs to be connected to the analytical system, which is where the customer is going to get get the intelligence out of all these devices and all these systems, right? From PSIRT perspective, of course, we are proud of these things, but as a PSIRT team, we need to anticipate vulnerabilities on these things, right? Because the threat landscape is increasing. Uh, our products gets targeted, critical infrastructures are targeted, our customers are targeted. So we have the responsibility to protect our customers and the society. So we have to anticipate vulnerabilities and be prepared for that. But that's not easy, right? Considering this heterogeneous environment, it's not going to be easy. We need to consider various elements because we are dealing with hardware and we are also dealing with software, right? So the hardware is the way you are going to manage is going to be different, but the software, it is going to be a little different. And the risk profiles are very different for these type of devices, right? When you take a firmware, the risk comes from a different angle, but when it comes to the software, it is different. And most importantly, you need to have a multi-competence team, right? We cannot just have a software engineers or hardware engineers alone. We need people who are familiar with both stuff and how these two things converge. And protocol engineers, we need various type of people with multi-competence. And another major thing which OT industry is facing today is the legacy and modern technologies or the protocols, right? So these protocols were designed several decades ago, and it has its own issue. Okay, can we change it? Yes, we can change it. We are changing it. But the thing is, it is a ecosystem with, not just, if we go to our customer locations, it's just not Schneider devices. We also have other devices, and all these needs to talk to each other. The interoperability is quite important here. So in some situations, the legacy protocols will be retained by the customer. So how are we going to manage the risk there? As I said, you have field devices, which is really on a segregated network at the customer location. You also have a device, the cloud offers that are exposed to internet, and the threat profile for these two are very different. And you need to consider everything into your framework. And of course, the patching priorities and complexities, like, our customers are running oil refineries or power plants, and it cannot be shuttered down. Shutting down means losing money, right? So we need to ensure the patching is performed in the right way, which means we release the patch and they take time. They have a decision-making system to ensure which needs to be patched or which should not be patched. All these are all, various elements we need to consider when we want to set up a PSIRT program for such a heterogeneous environment. And the framework needs to have certain characteristics, right? It needs to be customizable. As I said, this is a heterogeneous environment, so customization is the key word. And with the way, we are evolving, with the way the industry is evolving, with the way the technologies are evolving, we need to have two elements in place. One is the speed, another is the scale, right? We need to grow. We need to have the right speed. At the same time, we need to have the scale. So the framework also needs to be adaptable to ensure, we are catching up with the new changes or new evolutions. And the whole idea of frameworks is always reusable, right? So I should be, it should not be just for Schneider. It should be used by all of you, or even, if we have a change in the way we operate, it should be reusable. And it needs to be matrix approach, because I always say that PSIRT is not just one team who is going to do everything. It's a team sport. We need everybody. We need our developers. We need our testers. We need our engineers, everybody to be with us. So it needs to be have a matrix approach to ensure that, we have everybody included in the framework. So for that, we are suggesting a framework with 6 pillars, have various elements like governance. How are we going to govern it? Community animation. So I said it's a team sport, so there definitely needs to be a community who will support us. And the technology management. So, we have various technologies available today to detect vulnerabilities, to prioritize vulnerabilities. We need to employ them to ensure, we are going at the right speed at scale. And communication management, communication is a key. Because you are going to have vulnerabilities. You need to communicate to your customers. You need to communicate with your researchers or finders who report the vulnerabilities. We need to communicate with the other CERT organizations. We need to be ready for managing the media and the quality. Right? So end of the day, vulnerabilities are bugs, right? So there needs to be a strong quality management process to ensure how are we fixing the vulnerabilities? How are we ensuring that it does not occur again? And external layers, and PSIRT is a kind of, intermediary between your organization and with the world, right? In terms of vulnerability. So we need to have a strong external liaisons so that, we are up to the market. We are interacting with everybody. We are collaborating for the larger good. And now, let me go one by one with governance. What do we really mean by governance, and what needs to happen in the governance? First thing is we need to have a right organization model. We are not saying you need to have a centralized one or distributed one or hybrid one. It's up to you. But we need to have a right organization model. In Schneider, we are following hybrid organization model because it's just not one central team does everything. We work, we collaborate. One thing I would insist here is to always look for 3 lines of defense, right? So the 3 lines of defense have the level. Line number 1 would be manage the risk where the risk is created. The second one is the governing body. And the third one will have the independent view of whether the first and second line is working very well or not. This is quite important for us because when you do that, you have a people, the experts who are dealing with the risk. You have someone to manage the risk, and you have someone to oversee and ensure when you deviate, they bring you back, right? So and then the matrix model, just this morning, my colleague Megan was mentioning, when you are in an incident or vulnerability response, you cannot be reporting to 2 different bosses, right? That's a situation. So you need to really ensure your organization is structured in a way that you have a right person in the command, a right person taking charge of managing the vulnerabilities and how it happens. Okay. And then standards, right? So again, it's totally a flexible one. You can adopt any standards you want, like you have ISO 29147 and 30111 specifically for vulnerability handling and disclosure process. And first have a maturity model, which gives a lot of standardized activity which you can develop on. So based on that, have a policies and procedures in place, right? So this is quite critical, right? Because you are going to interact with external people and they need to know what is your policy, how they can report vulnerabilities, what is going to be a responsible disclosure, when can they expect your disclosure, all these things. At the same time, you need to ensure that you give them the right freedom. We cannot say that, oh, you need to sign an NDA to work with me on reporting the vulnerability. Oh, we might take a legal action against you. This is something we cannot do because the researchers are the one who are bringing vulnerabilities to us, and they are helping in securing our products in one or other way. So we need to create a very open environment for them to report vulnerabilities with confidence. And finally, compliance, the key part. There are so many regulations that are coming up in the world today. Every country CERT organizations have regulations to report vulnerabilities, adhere to certain processes. So we need to ensure we identify all of them based on the geography where you operate and the scope of your activities. And for internally, you need to have KPIs, because this is a capability, right? If you want to measure your capability, you need to have KPIs, and these KPIs needs to be defined. Now I move on to the next topic of community animation. It's one of my favorite. Because I said, it's a team sport, and we need to respect every individual, and we need to move together, and we need to handle things together. So I segregate into two, internal and external community. So when it comes to internal community, you need to have a clear differentiation. So there needs to be an operations committee to ensure the operations are going in the right way. And you need to have a governance committee to ensure, I spoke about the line 1 and line 2 of the defense. And most importantly, the vulnerabilities are going to be on the products, and they needs to be integrated into our system. If we are just not going to integrate them into the community, we are going to live far away from the reality. So it needs to be quite important that we integrate our product teams. They may not need to be a security experts, but they are the product experts, and we need them. And not just them, the legal team is quite important. When we are doing vulnerabilities, we are dealing with regulations, we are dealing with the responsible disclosure process. We need to ensure the legal is, we are bringing in legal into the community so they can guide us and counsel us to adhere to all the compliances. And communications. It's all about communication after you fix the vulnerability. So we need to have the right communications in place. Fabrice will speak a lot on the communications and cadence, right? So when you do it right, it's just not you set up community and you forget. You need to have a right way of cadence. How are you going to keep the interactions with them? How are you going to make things aware? How are you going to learn things from them? So and also, we go through all the changes and decision makings, and it needs to be very inclusive. We cannot just make the change that is not practically possible. So it needs to be an inclusive change and decision making process. Coming to the researcher as external community, we need to have the researchers and finders, right? So they are part of the community. They cannot be seen as somebody external who is a foreigner, right? They are part of the community, and we need to have a right discussions with them. What is a coordinated disclosure? And for their great work, we need to recognize them, right? In Schneider, we have a wall of thanks to thank all our researchers who find vulnerabilities on our product. And the suppliers, because your product is just not your product. It has integrated, it integrates various other components into it. If you have seen our SBOM presentation, we said we are working with 2,000 plus suppliers or partners. So the vulnerability could be on their component, which will impact our products. So we need to have a right way of working with them to proactively detect vulnerabilities on their product, work with them on the coordinated disclosure, and disclose it in the right way. Finally, we do everything for our customers, right? So customers need to be part of the community, so that we communicate with them on the vulnerabilities and various issues that goes on with it. And technology. This is quite important. So we spoke about SBOM in one of the session, but SBOM alone cannot solve any problem, or threat intelligence alone cannot solve any problem, or exploit monitoring alone cannot. All these things needs to be integrated, right? So I spoke about the component vulnerabilities. So you have your SBOM. The threat intelligence need to feed into the SBOM. The vulnerability database needs to feed into the SBOM. Exploits, whatever happened, needs to feed into the SBOM. Only then you can detect things proactively. If these systems are going to work in silo, it will never become a system. combination of all these technologies is going to be the system here. Automation, right? So, we are talking about hundreds and thousands of vulnerabilities, not just one or two few cases. So automation is a key. So you need to really have a way to have an automation to detect your vulnerabilities. You need to have a way, clear workflow on, how these things are going to happen, how the detection is going to happen, when it's going to happen, what's going to be the prioritization model and everything. And finally, when you detect something, you need to respond, right? So you need to have a right response process. The response process doesn't need to be an incident handling every time, because these are vulnerabilities. It needs to be gone through. It could be like a knowledge sharing at some point of time, depending on what you are dealing with, or it could be an incident response, or it could be even a crisis response, depending on what you detect. So there definitely needs to be a right response mechanism for handling for making use of these technologies and to respond to the situation. With this, I'll hand over to my colleague Fabrice for other three topics. So, have it.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about communication management. So first, communications needs to be integrated. So the first thing is to establish channels with the researchers or finders so that they can report the vulnerabilities securely, like in an encrypted message using PGP keys or something similar. Then obviously establish your coordinated disclosure policy. This is key so that you work in a controlled manner with your customers, with the researchers, and within your internal company. And of course, publish your principles for responsible disclosure so that everyone knows what to expect from your company. Vulnerability communication. So it's important to determine how you will report vulnerability disclosure, right? In the first place, you need to decide what needs to be reported externally, what will be reported externally, and how it will be done. The different timelines. Is there like a minimum timeline? You need to provide an external report or maximum timeline. All of this has to be defined, right? Along with the workflow of your communication process, it has to be predetermined. And an important thing as well is the approval matrix, which means you cannot just release or disclose vulnerabilities on your own. You need some sort of decision committee that reviews and approves your vulnerability disclosures. One of the important aspect is to get prepared for your vulnerability disclosure, and so for this, obviously prepare templates, decide which type of format you're going to use for your vulnerability disclosure, whether it's HTML, PDF, or machine readable like a CSAF. Identify also regulatory requirements for reporting vulnerabilities. We've seen over the couple of past years several authorities requiring specific elements to be disclosed to them. So it's quite important that you integrate them into your reporting capabilities and into your communication when it's required. Get prepared also for responding to uncoordinated disclosure. Even though you have a policy and a process in place, it will always, or it will eventually mess up. So you have to be prepared for that. And to do that, have a playbook in place with the different situation that may arise in case of uncoordinated disclosure, either from a researcher or that comes into the public knowledge without you having the possibility to communicate beforehand to your customers. So actually what we find was useful is to prepare templates for also communicating with finders or researcher, because most of the time, you know, when you deal with vulnerability management, you have some standard, you know, milestones or regular exchange with them. And so having like templates with wording that you can reuse on your day-to-day, you know, communications with the researcher is quite helpful and saves us a lot of time. Media management. So it's important to know what's happening out there when you're dealing with vulnerability management. So making use of a media monitoring tool is quite key to identify attention on the disclosed vulnerability or also on the undisclosed vulnerability. So having this sort of tool in place is important. And most importantly, get prepared to respond to media disclosure within your process, right? So quality management. So you know, cybersecurity is quite tied into quality, of course. It's you know, embedding your quality process within your vulnerability response is obvious, I guess, for everyone. But you know, doing things like quality checks of the remediation that you put in place, having quality, you know, assist and be participating in the root cause analysis of your vulnerabilities. That's quite important. Then reality checks. You need to assess your own, you know, capability to manage vulnerabilities. So conduct regular internal and external audits, and also eventually report the audit reports to the stakeholders and to the leadership, so that everyone gets their own part of the different, you know, audit results. Evaluate the maturity of your vulnerability response and disclosure capabilities. Like the first has a great maturity model that you guys can use, but you know, anything equivalent is also fine. It's important to know where you're at in terms of maturity. Perform trend analysis based on the root cause analysis and the lessons learned. Yes, you need to capture, you know, at some point where you get, you know, the most root cause for your vulnerabilities, and what are the you know, the most common lessons learned that you identified out of the vulnerabilities that you get. And so having that in place will also help improve your other processes. Continuous improvement, so remediate the audit findings and determine improvement based on root cause analysis and lessons learned. Okay, that update your process based on what you learn. Set up formal mechanism from the stakeholders of your process to improve on a regular basis. And well, as with all other policies, you know, conduct policy and process review at least annually, so that you don't stay stuck at the same level, but you always improve. External liaison. So this is, as Harish was mentioning, the way you coordinate or talk to people outside of your organization. So establish mechanism to work with other CERT organizations for vulnerability coordination. Establish mechanism for issuing CVEs. You have to like register as CNA, or you know, have some way to coordinate on the disclosure of the vulnerabilities with external parties. And you know, CVEs is the way to make vulnerabilities public and have unique IDs associated with it. So new standards and market adoption. So monitor, standards keep evolving. So monitor and adopt standards as they evolve. For example, CVSS v4 came out end of last year. You need to plan for adoption. The CVE rules also were recently updated. So they will go live in August this year, I believe. So you need to constantly review this type of things, the ISO standards, all of this continually evolves, and that has to be integrated into your new processes or your process updates. Quite important also is to collaborate and contribute with external communities. I think, FIRST is a great example of contribution, giving feedback and sharing experience with others. But you can also participate to working group like the CVE program, the FIRST special interest groups, APAC. There are a lot of ways you can contribute to the community. And finally, external benchmarking, conduct market analysis and benchmarking with the industry. So you know where you're at, right? And define short-term and long-term strategy for improving maturity. So it's not just about where you are, but where you want to go. And based on your level of maturity, you can, set expectation on where you want to go and plan for this. With that, I leave it to Harish.
Okay. So this is how, the final framework looks like, connecting all the 6 pillars. I'll not go through again everything, but, this is something I want to show you. So we have created a kind of framework for this, which can be used by anyone. Right now, it is almost at the final draft, but we are ready to share it with you. You can contact us through this email. Happy to share the framework with you, get your feedback, because, we said, this is one thing we wanted to do for the larger good. And again, when you want to use this framework, it doesn't necessary that you use everything. Depending on your organization size and your scope, you can customize it. Yeah. So thank you very much for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, I can answer.
Yeah, so I think we got about a minute and someone in the back. Yeah, go ahead and run up to the microphones. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Very informative, and I agree with most of the things. One question I have is, have you looked at the first PSIRT framework, and do you draw parallels with the framework that you just presented? How do you see it? Is it a parallel thing? Have you taken, inspiration for that? So just want to know your views on that.
Thank you, and great question. Yes, I think I should have told this. It is not a replacement for FIRST framework. Yes, FIRST is one of the mature, inspiration for us. But what we are trying to do is giving you the detailed actions, right? So, okay, fine. It has all service areas. It says this, but how we could do it, right? So it says you need to have an organization, more, organization, support, stakeholders. So what we are trying to do is to get more details, give a sort of checklist, which in the way you can achieve that level of maturity.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for the talk. There's one thing comment here that I would like to stress. So for all that are setting up PSIRTs or already established PSIRTs, I think the liaison part is really important. So make sure you check in with your national CSIRT and understand what their responsibilities are. So for us as national CSIRT, we're obliged by law to check all the security advisories and inform our constituency. So if there is anything that in particular you want to point out to us, come and talk to a national CSIRT, and they are happy to help you get it into the public and inform the constituency and urge them to action if there is need for.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's one of the thing in our checklist to collaborate with the national search, right? Because, you know, Schneider is a global company and we have global products, global presence. So we interact with various CERT organization, like Thomas said, you know, we collaborate with BSI as well in various CSAF efforts and stuff. So it's quite important to talk to this country search, understand what their regulations are, even sometimes, you know, collaborate with them on some activities that they are doing as a vendor. Okay, thank you very much.